Hello and welcome back to the channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Hopper. In 2023, I'm going to be doing an Appalachian Trail through hike from Georgia all the way to Maine, doing a solo hike, and I have never done any sort of through hike, never done any long distance hiking, so everything that I do is pretty much for the first time. Now today I'm going to be talking to you about one of the tents that I am going to be taking, actually the tent that I'm going to be taking to start off with. This is the Durston X-Mid Solid. And for someone that hasn't done any sort of camping in years, I think the last time I put up a tent, I still had, the self-supported ones with the bars that go across. You got to wind them through the sleeves, all that stuff. So this is something completely new. But what I've heard and all the videos I've seen, this is really easy to set up. Like how easy? I think it's like this easy. Okay, so maybe it's not quite that simple, but again, what I've seen and what I've read, and after months of research, this is probably one of the easiest tents to set up. So what Durston says is basically you could pitch this tent with only 4 stakes, which to me sounds great. There are additional stakes that come with it. You get 4 of the V-style stakes, and then 4 of, I don't know, look like a cane to me, but you get 8 stakes. Now, this is the X-Mid Solid. So what that means is you've got an outer shell like the fly, and then you have the inner, and that inner, instead of being mesh, is mostly a fabric. So it's a little bit more solid. It does have mesh around the doors so that you actually can get some airflow, but this is more for a lot more rain, more wind, and a little bit colder. They say this isn't really a true 4-season tent, but it's a little bit closer than their standard, single wall X-Mid Pro and the X-Mid Pro 2, which we're gonna talk about on another video. Anyway, so setting this up, it's all 2 tracking poles and your stakes. So when you get it, and again, this is actually my first time opening this. So you've got, I'm guessing this is the inner. So here's your inner, which again is, you've got the poly floor with more of a solid wall, and then you've got your mesh doors. The first time you set this up, they're gonna come separate. And the way this works is if you're gonna be camping in dry areas, you set up your outer, set up your inner, and you can tear it down together. So that way you're just putting it up at one point the next time. If it's gonna be wet outside, you can tear down your inner, put it in your pack, keep it dry, and then your outer, you can leave out so you could dry that off. So you're not having wet and dry combined. So let's see. I'm gonna grab 4 stakes. So the kit right inside your bag has your instructions. Stake out one short side of the fly, and then we're gonna pull out a 3rd corner at 90 degrees in stake. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. And you wanna make sure that this is completely square. So if you don't get it square, if you had it angled, the pitch just is not gonna be right. Let's see, what is the short and the long side? So obviously you have a ton of different options for tents. I was originally looking at the Z-Packs Duplex, and I have got this inside out, apparently. Let's see, so that's a door. I told you this is my first time. So I have a corner, maybe. All right, I have a corner and another corner. Anyway, so I was gonna do the Z-Packs Duplex, but when I kept seeing more and more stakes that were involved, I kind of got a little leery of choosing that one. And I looked at the initial price, which I think $6.99 for your first tent, maybe not what I was looking for. First stake. Down. And then your goal is to get this pulled tight. Corbin, my frame. I do have my son helping me. He's my videographer for the day.
Yes, you are almost.
Do I need to move back?
No, you're fine.
I'm fine.
I mean, it doesn't see all the stuff over there.
All right, we're gonna move it back. How far back? How's that? All right. It's good to have helpers, I think, especially when he gets to play with the cameras. He gets excited about that. So we're gonna pull that tight, and we wanna make sure we're looking really at a 90-degree angle on all these and not shaped like a pyramid. It looks pretty good. Now I'm also gonna be leaving in 2 days. I'm gonna be going on a 2-night camping trip to, I just realized I want to turn this because I want the door facing you guys. So I'm going to pause it. We'll set that up. All right, so now that I have figured out that I want the door to face you guys so you can actually see what's going on, I'm on my last stake. So what we've done, we put the 4 stakes in, and we're just gonna go around and check and make sure everything's taut, tight, and we can tighten up these guy lines as needed. Following the instructions here, it says, ensure fly is staked out as a rectangle, not a diamond. Check. Add both poles, tips up, and extend until taut. The way these work is you can either go through, there's a flap here on the side you can open up and go through that direction, or you can open up the door on the vestibule and go through. I'm just gonna go through here. Dan, if you're watching this, I'm really trying not to murder your tent. All right, so we've got the pole in there. There's a grommet in here, a metal grommet. Stick the pole tip in there, get it vertical, and then I'm gonna loosen it and extend the pole until the walls are taut. That's a good word, taut. 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 Now this is cool too because it has these Velcro tabs so you get airflow through. Okay, so I think I was also talking about the Z-Packs duplex, which I really was like, hey, I think that's gonna be the one for me. And then I kept looking. Now if you look at the footprint of the duplex and the Z-Packs, or excuse me, the duplex and the Durston X-Mid, they're pretty close. But the Durston X-Mid, you actually get a little bit more square footage, which I think when you're a bigger person, like me, bigger guy, you're like, yeah, more square footage, right? So it's not exactly 100% why I went for it, but I thought, hey, that's a good added benefit. So we got the second pole kind of in line with the first. Loosen that, drop it just like that. Did I mention I've never done this before? Like, ever. Get that taut. That's kind of loose, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is loose. So I think it might be the angle. So I'm gonna unzip the back here. There we go. Yep. So I'm going to angle that a little bit different and we'll extend it a little bit more. Well, that's easier. So one of the things you want to do, I guess, if you're going to go do the Appalachian Trail or something is practice. Because if it's pouring rain and I'm doing this, I'm hosed.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Look at that. That looks taut, doesn't it? Then, to do the inner, you can roll this up, and there is a magnet on this flap here. So you just clip it. I mean, it's like freaking genius. So that's the outer. I don't know how long that took. I'm gonna get some water and we'll hit record again and I'll do the next part. On the instructions, I was incorrect. It does tell you what to do with the inner. It just doesn't have pictures like the rest of it. After putting both the tips up and getting taut tips, then you add the peak guy lines and any additional stakes if desired. Again, I'm not gonna do those guy lines for this, but they would come out down here and over there. Watch, I'm probably gonna regret this. And then it says, once the fly is set up, insert the inner and clip the fly, one clip at each peak, clips at corners. Here is the inner. And what we're gonna do is take these clips and we're gonna clip them to the bottom rings around the inside of the tent. So again, I think one of the cool things about this tent is if you look at it where the vestibule is, here, the poles are not blocking the vestibule, which means that as you get in and out of the tent, you're not worried about knocking over the tent. And for someone like me, who's kind of like a bull in a china shop, that could happen a lot. All right, so that is that end. Clip one. Now the floor of the Durston tents don't run parallel to the outside. The footprint, you know, it kind of runs across, which gives you a little bit more space. But what that ends up giving you is inside the vestibule, you have a lot of space to put your shoes, your pack, other gear, etc. And you end up with a pretty good space inside. Now, the measurements on the website show a length, I believe, on the floor of 92 inches. And again, that 92 inches runs this direction. But that's pretty good for even the tallest campers. Last one. And then you have the peak. And there are two clips inside. I probably should have done this first. Sorry for the view you're getting. And there you go. Okay, so this is it. Again, I don't have these extended, so they don't have the full support, but that's your tent. This mesh is only around the top of the doors, so you do get some airflow, but having this additional fabric around here kind of helps with any sort of splash ups, the rain. It does keep it a little bit warmer inside. So now we'll take you inside and see just how big this space is. So I am 5'11". There's my feet, here's my head, and I have this much space above my head. Again, I'm not a small guy, but even if I wanted to do, because this is a two-person tent. If I'm on the edge, here's my head right here, there's my feet, plenty of room. And if you were in the center of this, I think one thing you don't have to worry about is if there's moisture along the top on the outer wall, you don't have to worry about hitting it. I mean, I'm looking at, there's a pretty good gap. So, and then sitting up, here's me sitting up, my head will hit here, but if I go to the high point along this ridge, I still have that much headroom. So plenty of space inside. Man, I gotta tell you, like, I think I chose wisely. Now again, I have never done this before, so forgive me for taking so long to set up a tent. But I think, honestly, I think this is pretty simple. Now, some other things that you have to think about is when there's a lot of rain or you're expecting high winds, those guy lines and the stakes, that gap underneath the wall on the outer fly, you want that down on the ground. And you may actually have to pull the stake out, adjust it in. If you do it, and you're lucky, I guess, you would only pull those guy lines a little bit tighter. And then you could add stakes all the way around, so you've got more support. But this is gonna be my home for 6 months, maybe 5, maybe 7, who knows. It's gonna take me. Anyway, all right, so the tent is up. This is gonna be the tent that I'm starting out with. So the weight on this, if you don't know, with stakes is just about 40 ounces. So that's stakes and a stuff sack. So 40 ounces, that's kind of heavy if you're thinking about ultralight, but as far as tent goes, that's just like crazy light. The X-Mid Pro 2 with stakes, I believe, is 21 ounces. The Z-Packs Duplex, if you're looking at that one, with stakes, depending on how many you buy, could be anywhere from 23 or 21 to 23 ounces. So your ultralight, they're all pretty much in the same weight, I believe, once you start getting that price range of some of these products. And the tents, I mean, from what I've heard and everything I've seen, the quality's there. Really, it comes down to what is your preference. And just like with everything else on the Appalachian Trail and other things, they say hike your own hike. Find out what works for you. Don't worry about what everyone else is saying. This is what I chose. You go find what you want and what's gonna work for you. But for me, so far, I'm impressed with how easy it is to set up. Yeah. And after I do a couple days, I'll know a little bit more. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, make sure you give me a thumbs up. And remember, I'm Hopper. Are you tracking?